past week, Pancake and I made the short trip across Central Texas to visit my grandmother and spend Thanksgiving at her home. She is very enthusiastic about my YouTube channel, but to put it in the nicest possible terms, not particularly tech savvy. So often when I visit, she jumps on the chance to have me set up YouTube on her television so that she can binge my latest videos. I am one of those people who, sort of like a lot of actors, can't watch or listen to anything that they're in or that they've made. So this go around, when my grandmother asked me to watch my most recent videos with her, the hair on the back of my neck stood up. It was full fight or flight. But I still agreed, because she's my grandmother and I love her. It was while we were watching 5 terrifying cosmic horrors that she said to me, "You make a lot of videos about macabre topics like hell. Doesn't it scare you to talk about things like that so often?" And I told her the same thing that I've actually said a few times on this channel. I said, "Honey," which is what I and my siblings call our grandmother, by the way. I said, "Honey, I actually find the idea of hell to be a comforting thought. The notion that the cruel and evil who have evaded justice in their lives will ultimately be punished in the afterlife is a comforting thought to me." It wasn't until yesterday, on the trip back home from Honey's house, that I realized I probably should have clarified what I had told her. I should have also said that I most certainly wouldn't describe the idea of actually going to hell and facing eternal damnation to be a nice notion. Hell as a place or experience sounds like the worst thing imaginable. Which, you know, now that I think about it, is often the point. Hell is supposed to be the ultimate castigation. Although, I will say that if hell is in any way analogous to its portrayal in Over the Garden Wall, where it is referred to as the unknown, then sign me up. Sorry, honey, but I'm gonna go out and start sinning, because I would love to spend eternity in the unknown.
In the pines, where the sun don't ever shine, oh, I'd shiver the whole night through.
Over the Garden Wall is a miniseries comprised of 10 episodes, adding up to a runtime of just under 2 hours. It was created by Patrick McHale, directed by Nate Cash, and released onto Cartoon Network in November of 2014. It was met with immediate critical acclaim, and the enthusiasm surrounding the show has only grown in the time since. There are countless video essays on this platform covering Over the Garden Wall, and I've noticed that pretty much every single one of them opens with the creator saying that it's one of their favorites, and that they found it to be an incredibly special and profoundly moving show. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that out of the way. Over the Garden Wall is incredibly special to me, and I have been profoundly moved by it. If I was, hypothetically, randomly held at gunpoint and asked what my favorite thing ever made was, I think there's a good chance I'd reflexively say Over the Garden Wall. I know the words to every song. I rewatch the show at minimum twice every fall, which I sometimes refer to as Over the Garden Wall season. I saw a handful of posts on social media this past month that simply said, "It's that time of the year again," and I knew exactly what they were referring to. Not only have I never met anyone who didn't like the show, I've never met anyone who didn't outright love it. If you know, you know. And if you haven't seen Over the Garden Wall, then you haven't lived all the way yet, and you should pause here and go watch it, because in this video I will be spoiling the entirety of the show. I will warn those first-time viewers, though, that by the 3rd episode you may begin to experience an odd sense of deja vu. Do not panic. This is completely normal. Over the Garden Wall has this unique and unexplainable familiarity to it, as if you had seen it before. The show feels like a hazy, half-forgotten dream or a foggy childhood memory. It is melancholic and lonely, but in a friendly sort of way. It reminds me of home, and I am not referring to any specific location when I say that. I'm talking about the concept of home. Over the Garden Wall is exceptionally touching and often very funny and sometimes surprisingly frightening, and so many other miraculous things, but it is also an exceedingly idiosyncratic depiction of hell. Over the past year and a half or so, I have watched, read, and played through oodles of, I love that word by the way, we need to bring it back. I have consumed oodles of hell-related content, and The Unknown is about as unique as they come. And this is in spite of the fact that this depiction is actually, technically, over 700 years old. But before we begin our journey into the unknown, I would like to quickly remind y'all that, as always, this video is timestamped and that there is a bibliography in the description. Make sure to comment down below letting me know either some of your favorite depictions of hell or some of the most unique portrayals that you've come across. And while you're at it, feel free to like and share this video. Also feel more than free, feel encouraged to support me on Patreon. For a minimum price of just $1 a month, you can have your name shouted out at the end of every future video. Plus, you will gain access to a growing library of shorter videos and older videos that were taken down from the channel for one reason or the other. While I do not know if hell in any of its many iterations exists, I do know what my least favorite part of it would probably be, and I'm not talking about the promised torture, torment, and suffering. It'd be the heat. Hell is often depicted as an ablaze, sometimes even magma-ridden, smoldering bonfire. The phrase burn in hell is only slightly figurative. I cannot stand hot weather. I have gotten super heat sensitive over the past few years. In fact, I dislike the feeling of the sun's rays, even just touching my skin, which often makes living in Texas pretty uncomfortable. So the fact that Over the Garden Wall's version of hell is an autumnal northeastern American forest makes it for me a pretty appealing place to be doomed to for all of eternity. Also, The Unknown is beautiful. Its scenery is predominantly composed of dense woodlands, which are also populated by scattered rivers, marshes, and meadows. I find the aesthetic of not just The Unknown, but the entire show incredibly appealing and comfortable. It is a one-of-a-kind blend and mixture of 19th century Americana, Gothic folklore, and ragtime. The seasonal setting of fall isn't just a circumstantial backdrop, it is often the focus. There are many ubiquitous shots of things like falling leaves and pumpkin fields that linger up until the show's finale, in which The Unknown is overtaken by a harsh winter storm. Of course, no hell is complete without its devil, and Over the Garden Wall's version of the Prince of Darkness, a shadowy figure known as the Beast, is
I'm the Highwayman.
a shadowy figure called
I'm the Highwayman.
I make ends meet, just like any man. I work with my hands. If you cross my path, I'll knock you out, drag you off the road, steal your shoes from off your feet. I'm that highwayman, and I'm making me.
Before I talk about the Beast, I should probably explain to those not in the know what makes The Unknown a depiction of hell. When I first watched the show nearly 8 years ago now, I did not make the connection between Over the Garden Wall and Dante Alighieri's 1321 poem, The Divine Comedy. In fact, I didn't learn that until my final year of college. Not from college, I learned it from Trey the Explainer's excellent video essay entitled Over the Garden Wall is Dante's Inferno. And yeah, it 100% is. His analysis is spot on, he absolutely nailed it. Up until this past week, I had never actually read any portion of the Divine Comedy in any capacity whatsoever. It was often mentioned in my college literature classes, but usually skimmed over just as quickly. So yeah, I went ahead and I read it. I mean, it's a very old text, I would say, and I would say that
Page turners, they were not.
the Divine Comedy is divided into 3 parts: Inferno, Purgatorio, and Paradiso. Over the Garden Wall is, in large part, a very faithful adaptation of Inferno. Wirt and Greg are Dante and Virgil. Like the former, Wirt is a love-struck poet who embarks on a pilgrimage guided by a close companion. For Dante, that was Virgil, and for Wirt, it is his younger brother, Greg. I have 2 younger brothers, by the way, and I adore this show's depiction of brotherhood and how well it fleshes out the relationship between Wirt and Greg. The Inferno's hell consists of an entrance and 9 layers, referred to as circles. When Dante and Virgil first arrive at the gates of hell, they are greeted by an ominous inscription that reads, "Abandon all hope ye who enter here." The first episode of Over the Garden Wall, entitled The Old Grist Mill, ends with Greg and Wirt venturing further into the unknown as a woodsman issues them an eerily similar warning.
Beware the unknown! Fear the beast! And leave these woods! If you can.
The first circle of Dante's hell is Limbo, a mostly barren void populated by despondent individuals who long for a salvation that will never come. In the second episode of Over the Garden Wall, entitled Hard Times at the Huskin Bee, our protagonists visit the town of Pottsville, whose citizens are awaiting a harvest that is just as absent. In the fourth episode of the show, we are introduced to a tavern full of colorful characters, whose situation is analogous to that of the gluttons confined to Dante's third circle of hell. The following circle is Greed, which corresponds with the show's fifth episode entitled Mad Love, which revolves around an exuberantly wealthy recluse who is slowly losing his mind. Dante's fifth circle of hell is Wrath, which is an enormous and foul river. As Dante and Virgil are ferried across the river, they observe its prisoners who are everlastingly ensnared in the toxic mud, sludge, and ooze of the riverbed below. In the sixth episode of the show, entitled Lullaby in Frogland, our protagonists ride a ferry down a bayou inhabited by, to my ceaseless excitement, a society of frogs. For those who don't know, I love frogs. I proposed to my wife while frog hunting, and like those imprisoned in the mud of Dante's fifth circle, the frogs too end up wallowing in the underbelly of a swamp. The Inferno's seventh circle is violence, which is actually gerrymandered into 3 subsections: violence against neighbors, against self, and against God, art, and nature. Like Dante and Virgil here, Greg and Wirt come across a river and a forest of trees, who most certainly used to be people, as they make their way to the penultimate circle, Fraud, which corresponds to the show's 9th episode entitled Into the Unknown. Just about every character we meet in this episode is in one way or another masquerading as something they are not. Most so Wirt, who is doing his best to impress a girl that he has a crush on. The final circle of Dante's Inferno is Treachery, which, despite what many people might assume, is a frozen lake. Not so coincidentally, during the show's climax, the unknown is overtaken by a snowstorm, and the climactic standoff with the Beast takes place on a frozen lake. So let's talk about the Beast, who has not only been haunting the entirety of... Before we move on to the Beast, I do want to make one last tangent into the show's very memorable, brief characters who appear all over the place. In the 4th episode entitled Songs of the Dark Lantern, this freaky little guy called the Highwayman, he takes center stage and performs a solo number animated in the style of Cab Calloway's rotoscoped dancing from the 1932 Disney cartoon Minnie the Moocher. The funniest part of this whole bit is that after this scene ends, we never see the Highwayman again. I love this type of gag where a character is given an over-the-top big introduction, but is in no way important to the story. The only other example that I can think of off the top of my head is the Jesus from The Big Lebowski.
Jesus.
You said it, man. Nobody fucks with the Jesus.
As mentioned earlier in the following episode, we meet the affluent Quincy Endicott, whose extraordinarily large mansion is basically just like a maze of corridors and bedrooms, so much so that the ghost that he believes is haunting him turns out to be just the other person that lives there. By the way, the show's cast is stacked. Elijah Wood voices Wirt, Christopher Lloyd voices the aforementioned Woodsman, there's a character named Beatrice who is voiced by Melanie Linsky, who, along with the entirety of her family, has been transformed into a bluebird as a part of a curse. She accompanies the brothers for most of their journey, originally with the duplicitous intent of trading them to an evil witch named Adelaide, voiced by Tim Curry, in exchange for an end to her family's curse. But ultimately, she does have a change of heart and becomes a close ally. I have already talked about the army of frogs encountered in the show's 6th episode, and I don't mean army in the sense that you may be thinking. That is what a group of frogs is called. Also, fun fact, a group of cats is called a clouder. But yeah, we're not done with the frogs. You better believe that I'm going to talk more about the frogs. Greg carries with him, literally to hell and back, a little green singing frog whom he initially calls Kitty before renaming him 10 more times. In chronological order, those names are Wirt Jr., George Washington, Mr. President, Benjamin Franklin, Dr. Cucumber, Greg Jr., Skipper Ronald, and finally, Jason Funderburker. The frog not only belts out a ballad on the ferry, but he also sings the show's opening theme, which is entitled Into the Unknown, and its extended version, which sort of serves as the show's epilogue. Both of these are performed beautifully by the late Jack Jones, who passed away at the age of 86 this past year. His rendition of Into the Unknown is whatever is better than perfect. It is one of the warmest and most benevolent songs I have ever heard. The melody sort of swaddles you in its soothing arms. There is no better track to throw on while you relax on the couch, lazily watching the raindrops outside pitter-patter delicately off the window, and then before you know it, you're counting the clouds, who are moving oh so leisurely across the sky as you drift off into a comfortable sleep. You awaken from your rest to find that the sun has long since set. Something darts across the room behind you before sneaking into a shadowy hallway whose void obscures all but the thing's glowing orb-like eyes, which slowly rise and fall with the wet sound of its raspy breathing. You can hear the clickety-clack of its overgrown nails scraping along the floor. You think to yourself that you may still be dreaming. You attempt to convince yourself that the crooked silhouette now inching its way into your peripheral isn't real. But then, you hear the singing. At first it is quiet, but quickly it grows to be deafening. It is the wicked caroling of none other than Satan himself. Not only is there a devil in this world, but you are about to meet him because, oh my god, he is creeping towards you, crawling closer and closer on all fours until finally lurching upwards into a more familiar hominid stance. You can feel his breath on the back of your neck. The glow of his beaming, luminous eyes is dancing off the walls around you, and then before you know it, their piercing gaze has met yours. As you stare, slack-jawed, deep into the brilliant, colorless vortex that now rises from the earth, the beast finally speaks his word unto you. His sweet, buttery trilling rattles through your head like a jackhammer, and then he poses a question to which you could formulate no answer. You are in the 9th ring of hell, face to face with the devil, and you are frozen in place. You are sure that the drums in your ears have burst, yet you can still somehow hear the beast repeat his query. You can do nothing but shudder and shiver as yet again the beast asks,
Are you ready to see true darkness?
I am not afraid of the beast, nor do I think he is too scary for this series. Over the Garden Wall isn't a children's show, although it isn't not that either. Despite airing on a network frequented by a predominantly younger audience, it was created with the clear intent to appeal to older audiences as well, which is also the crowd in which it has found its most passionate fandom. Several years ago, while filling in for a teacher who ran an after-school cartoon club, I unwittingly put on Centaurworld for a classroom of 5th graders, which is an extremely goofy and wacky Netflix musical romp through the happily singing and dancing countryside until one of the most frightening, grotesque, and monstrous villains I have ever seen in my life suddenly gate crashes his way into the show. Was the Nowhere King too scary for a series like Centaurworld? I can only speak from my own personal experience, which involves 17 or so traumatized kids and some very angry parents. The Beast, while aesthetically is somewhat similar, isn't really like that. He is definitely eerie and ominous, but not aggressively terrifying or nightmare-inducing. Sure, he does have some chilling moments, and I especially find the way in which he manipulates the woodsman to be particularly unsettling. He has convinced him that his daughter's soul is burning inside of this lantern, and if its flame ever dies, so too will she. So the woodsman spends the vast majority of the show under the beast's control, harvesting oil from lumber to fuel the lantern. It is, of course, revealed that the trees he has been chopping down were once children and other lost souls, who the beast has transformed into timber. And this is all very creepy, but I'm an adult. I can handle it. I am not afraid of the beast. However, I am frightened of what he represents. Aside from symbolically being the devil, the beast is the embodiment of despair and anguish. He is constantly tempting the show's characters into giving up their quests, into submitting to hopelessness, and into relinquishing their hope. As someone who is still battling a long and often backbreaking mental illness, I cannot emphasize enough how powerful hope is as a tool, as a torch to cling onto. When that flame goes out, the darkness is suffocating, which is why I find the revelation that the soul inside of the lantern is not that of the woodsman's daughter, but is in fact the beast's, so powerful. When confronted by the beast, Wirt quickly finds himself helplessly alone, and at first can do nothing but cower in the emptiness surrounding him. There is nothing but the beast's brilliant, bright eyes. Again, he asks him,
Are you ready to see true darkness?
But it's all just an illusion, just tricks. Inherently, the beast has no real power. He only has what we surrender to him.
Are you... Are you...
Don't!
The show's epilogue makes me cry every single time I watch it, but in a good way, in like a cozy way. Every time I finish the show, I am always struck by the sudden urge to take Pancake on an autumn walk through the woods, and if the weather is permitting, that is exactly what I do. Yes, we must beware the beast when navigating the unknown. We must be cognizant of his tricks and of his lies. But also, we must be cautious not to close ourselves off to all lies, especially not the little lies we tell ourselves to get through the day that inspire hope in us. The loveliest lies of all.
Robin Hood and Little John walking through the forest, laughing back and forth at what the other has to say. Reminiscing this and that and having such a good time. Oodle-lally, golly, what a day. Never ever thinking there was danger in the water they were drinking, they just guzzled it down. Never dreaming that a scheming sheriff and his posse was a-watching them and gathering around. Robin Hood and Little John running through the forest, jumping fences, dodging trees and trying to get away. Contemplating nothing but escape and finally making it. Oodle-lally, golly, what a day. Oodle-lally, golly, what a day.
Thank y'all so much for watching. I mentioned in the last upload that I am struggling with some mental health stuff again, and that I probably wasn't going to be feeling up to making any new videos anytime soon. So imagine my surprise when I strung together not just a few days, but like an entire week of productivity. Happy holidays. I want to wish y'all all well and safe travels if you're visiting family or friends, anything like that. Pancake and I are about to head off to see Honey again, kind of for the Christmas season. But before we go, I would like to thank all of my patrons. Alex Anderson, Quinn, Abel Duviant, That Fifth Puddle, Batman Ultra 7, Christian Daniel Enriquez, Sarah, Natty, Garrett H, Nix or NYX, Null Productions, Levi Barnett, Barbecutie, Cooper Jones, A Very Throwable Brick, Avi, BAAM Brandon or Bam Brandon, Alex, Ubaba, Katie LaBombard, Mark Simmons, Ethan J. Is Ait, Braden Surfos, Joy Barnett, Nina Verkowski, Curbing, Sean C., Addison S., Martha Barnett, Drew K., Totally Awesome, and Lance B.